All right, welcome to part 2 of properties of matter. We're going to talk about describing matter. So basically, scientists have spent hundreds of years investigating matter, and therefore they developed a theory to help them explain matter's characteristics. And a theory is basically an explanation of something that is supported by doing an experiment over and over and over and getting the exact same results. So when we're talking about the particle model of matter, it's a theory that helps us explain what scientists have learned about the nature of matter and how the atoms and the tiny particles, how they behave. So the particle model of matter states that all matter is made up of particles, and that these particles have different ways of behaving if they're in solid, liquid, or gas form. So if we start with our solids and we look, particles are all closely packed together. So you think a desk or your cell phone or a table or a chair. Now those particles are all solid, so they don't move very much. So they move very little. Whereas if you look at a liquid like water or your orange juice, the particles are sort of further apart so they can move around. So all these guys get to move around. These guys the solids are like vibrating, whereas liquids are moving around a little bit more. Okay, and then gases, we have gas particles are loosely packed together, so they move freely. So like, I'm going over here, or I'm going over there, or I'm going to go way over to this side of the jar. Okay, so that's your solids, liquids, and gases, and that's what the particle model of matter tells us about those solid, liquids, and gases. Okay, so let's sort of recap that a little bit. So solid particles are packed tightly together and they cannot move very much. They sort of vibrate. They sort of vibrate. They're packed close. So they're packed close. This means that solids will keep their shape and they won't flow. So they keep their shape. They keep their shape. Whereas liquids, the particles are touching, but they can move past each other. So they move. So they move past each other. This explains why liquids can take the shapes of their containers and they flow easily. So they flow and they take the shape of their container. Okay, and then when we're talking about gases, they're far apart from each other and they're moving really quickly. So particles in a gas will keep moving away from each other until they're stopped by like the walls of the container. So they'll keep moving. So they'll also take the shape of their container. Oops, take the shape of their container. Okay, there's the particle theory of matter with solids, liquids, and gases. So when we also talk about classifying matter, we also talk about physical and chemical properties of matter. So physical properties are how you describe, like how you would describe a friend, for example. So, they're quite tall, what their hair color is, what their eye color is, do they have big hands or small feet? Those are sort of physical characteristics. Whereas chemical characteristics are how they're going to react to each other. So that's like your friend's like personality, let's say. So they're pretty smart, they're a little shy sometimes. That's their chemical properties. So our physical properties, for some of the examples of our chemicals, our physical properties can be like shape, color, texture, freezing point, or boiling point. It could be how it smells. Is it magnetic? Is it hard? Flexible? How dense it is. Okay, whereas chemical properties is like how it's changed. So is there a change in smell or color or temperature? So change in the smell or color or temperature. How it reacts with other substances. So how it reacts. If there's a new substance that's been produced. Is there a new substance produced? How easy does it catch on fire or burn? So an example of a physical property, so if we think of a physical property of water, we could say it's liquid. So water is liquid at room temperature. And it freezes like into an ice cube at 0 degrees. Okay, that's a physical property. Whereas a chemical property could be like if I'm baking a cake and I put all these different things together and all of a sudden it turns like from this weird liquidy stuff into this, beautiful cake. This is my beautiful birthday cake. So that was a chemical change that happened. So yeah, so that we talked about physical and chemical properties, and we also talked about the particle model of matter. So that's the end of part 2, properties of matter, describing matter.